Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path. Welcome to the start of our 2023 border track trip. By the way, if you want to pick up some stickers or patches, jump onto our Buy Me a Coffee page, buymeacoffee.com/OTBP, Off the Beaten Path. You can pick up stickers and patches there if you're interested. Or you can just donate coffee and buy me a virtual coffee to support the channel and what we do. So coming with us on this trip, of course, I'm coming on the trip. Always going to have that one guy that plays in the mud and makes things look hard. You've got to be there. Also coming on the trip is Dan from Out There with Dan in the Iron Emu, his revamped 90 Series Prado. Coming along with us as well is Trippy Matt, pushing that 75 Series Trippy as hard as he possibly can, and making short work of the border track. Of course, no trip's complete without Luca, the Italian chef, pushing that TB48. And we also have Paul with us again, Mr. Control, bringing along his FJ Cruiser. So epic trip, can't wait to get into it. So, just heading off, or getting ready to head off from the Pines campground, and Dan's got himself a flat battery. So, Luca's just lining up there to connect up the jumper leads. So, Dan has an isolation switch between his crank battery and his battery box in the back of his Prado. And last night he didn't turn that off. Usually he turns that off so that his battery in the back doesn't suck all the juice out of his crank battery. Unfortunately, last night he didn't turn that off, so he's found himself this morning with a dead crank battery. Fortunately, when you're traveling with a few mates, a quick jump start and he's back in business. Would have been more of an issue if he's solo, but I know Dan does carry one of those lithium jump start packs that probably would have got him going as well, even if he was solo. So yeah, quick jump start and everybody's mobile. So heading straight south today from the Pines campground on the one-way section of the border track to just past the end of the one-way section to the Red Bluff campground, which I haven't been to before. So shorter day today, 50-60 Ks, but probably more stops and tougher going in the soft sand. So looking forward to seeing what it's like today. We got a little bit of a taste of it coming in yesterday, and a fair indication that compared to when we were here in winter, the sand is definitely a lot softer. So the guys from the other campground at the Pines, they headed out a few minutes before us. So they're up ahead of us on the track. And our first stop is the Hensley Trig. You can see Dan just up ahead of me there, bouncing up and down quite a lot as he's making his way over those humps and bumps. It is a very lumpy track, the border track. It's certainly going to give you your suspension a good workout. There's no question about that. You're certainly going to find out if you've got any crook shock absorbers or it's not up to task. That is for sure. As I've always say, keep in mind, watch the car to see how much the car's moving, because the smoothing technology in the GoPro cameras smooths all those lumps and bumps out an awful lot. The footage probably wouldn't be watchable if it didn't have that technology built into the camera. And as you can see, despite the popularity of this track, it is pretty tight in places. You can see some good sized ruts here down into the sand, and again the car's moving quite a lot. So those sort of humps on the track have the dual sort of effect of both slowing you down and making the car less stable and messing with your traction a little bit. You can see this track over time's cut its way down into the sand from where natural ground would have been a couple of feet higher. But very happy with how the 76 is driving and performing. as you can see here, some of these climbs are long and pretty steady. Not super steep, at least these early ones aren't very steep. There's certainly some of those later on. Big wombat holes here. So this is the one-way section. The only way these wombat holes got here are people turning around and driving back up what is a one-way section of the border track. But yeah, slow and steady, just crawling through these. I doubt that the axles on the 70 are flexing enough to actually put the tyres into the bottom of those wombat holes. I really don't think that's happening. But yeah, easy enough to drive over the top of, but clearly people are coming down here and turning around and having a drive back up. This one is going in the right direction. You can see some wombat holes there starting to develop. So over time that's probably going to get more and more tricky. And look, as we're heading south, our first stop today will be the Hensley Trig. So a bit of a gear shift there, and that's something where I'm getting used to driving a manual, getting used to, you know, selecting my gear before I start a hill and staying in that gear. Changing gears while you're going up one of these sand hills is not ideal. You bleed off a lot of speed really quickly and can be a bit tricky to get going again, so you really do need to sort of pick your gear, learn your vehicle and pick your gear and drive it, at least for those of us driving a manual. The guys in the autos, of course, not so much of an issue. Most of the time I was in second gear, so that down change there was from third back to second, and most of the time driving this I was just in high range, because generally you can drive it over 20 kilometres an hour. In most sections you do slow down for some, but didn't find the need for low range most of the time. And there's Dan just stopped up ahead. I think he's adjusting his GoPro. And yeah, before not too long we're on to this section of track, which last time we were here this was fairly wet, slippery and muddy, but dry as a bone today. And I'm pretty sure on the right hand side there's a bit of a bypass track maybe, but again not needed today. This is a little bit off camber, probably could have put a wheel up the top, but you know, there was really no need for that. It was easy enough to drive, just leaving the wheels in the ruts, and that way you don't have to worry about slipping off. And I think if you tried to put a wheel up the top on the left, you'd have hit a lot of that vegetation anyway. So there's no reason not to just drive in the ruts here. But yeah, certainly no water around here in October, so very different June to October. And yeah, back onto the sandy section of the track. So on board here with Luca, and that's Matt in front of Luca and me in front of Matt there in the 70. Keeping in mind, Matt's troop is a 75 series troopy, so it's I think it's a 2H. Probably getting that wrong. Somebody's going to tell me in the comments for sure. I think it's a 2H, and they put out about 75 kilowatts. So he doesn't have a lot of power there to work with, but he's still getting that thing pretty much everywhere we're getting our vehicles. Again, you can see there just how rocky some sections of this track are. It's almost like if you get seasick, you don't want to be driving this track. And yeah, as I said, the trees are pretty close on the track, despite how popular this is. I think at peak times, this is midweek, so I think peak times on weekends they get something like 400 vehicles coming through here. Again, you can see how rough that was, how much the car's moving around there, shaking side to side. Really going to test your suspension out coming through here. So tucked in behind Paul now in his FJ. That thing's an absolute weapon. So independent suspension on the front, solid axles on the rear. He's got a good set of mud terrains. I think they're 33s. I don't think they're 35s. Could be wrong. And it just crawls and drives everything. It is twin locked. And plenty of power from the petrol engine under the bonnet as well. So again, I think coming up that hill there, you heard it was sort of idling down low in the rev range and slowing up a little bit. I was probably in the wrong gear. So all part of learning how to drive a manual. This is a couple of months ago now. You guys know how long it takes me to edit and upload these. So you know, this is going up here in March and was filmed back in October. Yeah, it's taken a little while, but I'm a lot happier and more comfortable driving the manual now, and really getting used to it and appreciating the engine braking, particularly in the high country. So as I said, look, our first stop is the Hensley Trig, which we're coming up on now. Not that you can see it. Now the Hensley Trig is the highest part of the Ngarkat National Park. As you would expect, being a trig point, marking for surveyors. It's a nice steady climb up here. Not super soft. You can see that trig point just up there poking through the trees. Just to the right of centre. And pretty much middle now, straight ahead. And Paul's just pulled up there behind the other guys that left camp this morning. There is a bit of a parking area here at the Trig, so there's room for a fair few vehicles. And just back on board now with Luca following Matt, coming up on that same section of track. Nice and steady on the throttle. And this is filmed obviously from up near the Trig, watching them come up. So again, Matt pushing that trippy along. Short work of things, despite probably having the least amount of power out of any of the vehicles. And then Dan in his 90 series Prado, the Iron Emu, which did a top job on this trip. He has moved a lot of his accessories from his previous Prado across, so he's got a good pedal suspension set up under there. Back at the Hensley Trig. Feels almost like a second home now. Back along the border track, the Trig, and the rest of today's adventure. You can just see some footage there of the guys that were camped at the Pines campground heading off and making their way down the track. So we gave them a good few minutes head start so that we didn't catch up to them on the track, and we never did. We never saw those guys again. So they must have legged it, because yeah, we never caught up to them, never saw them again. Look at that, out here in the middle of the desert and you find a crazy Italian.
Crazy Italian. Here we go. Tuscan in the desert. How's this magic?
It's pretty good, isn't it?
Oh, nice.
There he is.
I've actually got a stubby hold at the myth, the legend.
Could you just look over that way and give us a nice... Yeah, that's the one. There's your thumbnail. Clickbait.
Hang on, let me take your pants off.
Oh, no.
So there we are, Luca, Dan, Matt, me and Paul. Great bunch. This trip was a huge amount of fun with those guys. Just really good bunch of guys to be on a trip with. Yeah, we had a really good time, as you can sort of see. Everyone's got a good sense of humour. I really enjoy seeing the different vehicles and how they handle. So there's Paul's FJ and Luca's GU and Dan's 90 Series Prado. Matt and I are the only two manuals.
Like, you know, by the time you have a few goes and we all get in and out of cars and walk on sand 50, 60 Ks,
Yep,
that's enough.
it is.
You know, some of us like you are a bit fitter, but some of us are not very, very fit.
I don't feel fit either sometimes. this will test anyone in the sun, standing out here.
And
Yeah.
walking in the soft sand,
Yeah,
up and down hills, carrying cameras.
yep,
Who would do that?
yeah. What kind of person would do that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
So quick catch up there with Dan from Out There with Dan. So if you get a chance, jump over to Dan's channel and check it out. He puts up some really good content. Does a much better job than I do editing videos, that's for sure. So yeah, Out There with Dan, check him out. Probably familiar to most of you, as he's been in a few trip videos with us now, and among other things always looks after us with a good feed. So yeah, jump over to Dan's channel when you get a chance and check out. He's got some content on his Iron Emu build, and we'll have some trip videos up on this trip, I'm sure, when he gets a chance to edit those as well. So on board now with Matt in his 75 Series Trippy, following me as we're heading south away from the Hensley Trig. And just on board now with Luca and his GU Patrol, with Dan, Paul and Matt in front of him. So just a good shot of
Little bit choose your
all
own
the
adventure
vehicles.
there, isn't it? Yeah, they all seem much the same to me. I don't know, these people with independent suspension. Look like the FJ was rocking a bit. You got coils there as well, have you? Yeah, it's solid coil rear axle.
So yeah, Luca, Dan and Paul coils all round, solid axle in the rear, independent in the front except Luca's solid axle in the front. 90 Series might be as well, I'm not sure on that actually. And then obviously Matt and I are running the leaf springs in the back and coils in the front, solid axle front and rear. So the vehicles all do handle very differently. They've all got different engines with different amounts of power. Paul and Luca are petrol, the rest of us are diesel. And yeah, look, this track just keeps changing. 1 minute you're in open green bush with lots of sand, the next minute you're enclosed and it feels very dry, and then all of a sudden you're climbing a little sand hill again, and the car's rocking and rolling left to right. Again, you get a bit of a sense of that here on board with Matt, where he's holding the camera and you can see the car moving and bouncing. Just catching up to Dan here, pulled over. And you can see how much the cars are moving here. And yeah, when you come along the track and there's a turning area like this, it's usually a fair sign that there's a decent hill coming up. Also the fact that there's alternate tracks or multiple tracks, generally the ones further to the right are meant to be easier. So didn't spare the horses. really had no idea how soft this might be, so gave it a good punt, and it was asked and answered as far as this hill goes. As I said, look, a lot of people talk about the 70s being underpowered stock, and you know, while you could always have more power, there's not a need for it.
That's
in my
it. Give it
opinion.
to her.
Especially,
Keep the
you
power
know,
on.
stock, the 70 series, about 154 kilowatts. I think the 2H
Do
in
it.
the 75 series Troopy stock is about 75 kilowatts, and
Yeah, you're going to make that. Keep it coming.
she's working, but she's getting there. Nicely done.
Okay.
Paul doesn't stop for much of anything. Definitely a bit more power on tap than the 75 Troopy, that's for sure. And now we've got Dan in his 90 series Prado with Luca right behind him coming up. And again, this was a section here that was flooded out. You can see on the right hand side there's a bypass track that we definitely took last time because we couldn't see what was going on down in here. This time it was bone dry and quite solid, so driving the main track really wasn't an issue, so elected to do that. This was just one big puddle of water back in June when we were here. A whole different ball game. And it probably isn't coming through on camera there terribly well, but on the left hand side that's quite a deep sort of rutted exit, so yeah, move to the right here, a little bit off camber, but much easier to drive than straight ahead.
Sand is just so much softer than it was last time.
It's really only one way, isn't there? It's straight up.
Yeah, there is an alternate route to
No,
this.
there isn't.
Go for it.
You're making things up.
Gotta love Matt's confidence. Once again though, the 75 Troopy was up to the task.
Straight up the hard line.
So yeah, Matt's gone up ahead to grab this footage for us. So again, you can see there the sand has been stabilised by matting that they've put into the sand to prevent it being eroded away. That's how soft it gets. And the 76 is doing a top job. So Paul in the FJ, of course, is not going to have any trouble. Always liked the FJ cruisers, and having been on a few trips with Paul now, I mean, I think the person behind the wheel's got a bit to do with it, but they seem to be exceptionally capable. And that suspension setup he's got, you can see those tyres just dropping down. He's never losing traction. He seems to have good range of articulation in that suspension setup that he's running, which is really nice.
I'll be from behind you there, Dan. Video tapping from the back. I'll make sure the video's now working.
And last but not least, Dan from Out There with Dan coming up with Luca hot on his tail. And again, this 90 Series Prado that Dan has not long picked up. A couple of basic mods. He's got decent tyres on there and a good suspension setup from Petters under the under it. But yeah, that's basically it. And it's handled all this with no trouble whatsoever at all. And again, doing its job, flexing nicely, maintaining traction, and getting through the obstacles. As you can see, it's not long until we're on to the next sand dune climb. Nice view from the top of this one. You can see the track up ahead with a couple more dunes, of course, to come. Don't always think of them as dunes because they're pretty heavily vegetated, but that's exactly what they are. And again, you get a sense here, this is me changing gears badly at the start of this hill. You get a sense here of just how soft and deep the sand is. Decent sized ruts both sides of the track there. Yeah, the 70s handled that without really any fuss. And so coming up to the next big dune and getting onto some of the softer ones now, that sign there sort of recommends a bypass for low clearance or vehicles with camper trailers. You'd have to be eager to bring a camper trailer down here, but I don't know, maybe I'll come back and do this and take the dot. I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Might be for a while anyway. So again, long steady climb here. But really on this main section of the track we haven't had any issues climbing any of these dunes. You can see just up here where that sort of bypass track merges back in with the main track. And again, find ourselves at another turning area here, and you can see there's 3 or 4 different routes up over this dune. And yeah, as I'm getting going here, again showing you how not to drive a manual. Basically stalled it there because the thick soft sand, I just didn't get enough revs up and it stalled the car. So it is definitely thick and soft. After that start, I was pretty determined that that wasn't going to happen again. So I've unleashed the V8. And we're not stopping. Up here at the top before we know it. So you can see just in the distance there the parking area, and here comes Paul. Similar philosophy to my drive in the 70.
Paul's
No
through.
fuss, no muss. So
They've got 4 vehicles and they're about to get going.
Another
Copy
group
that.
of 4 vehicles came through, so the guys made the decision to hang back
All
and
the
let them
GGs,
through,
come on.
which we did. And now Matt's coming through in his 75 series Troopy.
Just
Giving
keep
that
the pressure
as much
on.
juice as he can to get up here.
That's it, the revs sound good, keep it coming. That's it, keep coming. You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it.
That's what she said. Keep going.
Push it.
And he's up.
Nicely done, mate.
So again, we've got Dan followed by Luca.
The Silver Emu's doing it easy.
You can see I've learned my lesson from earlier in the trip where I didn't park my car just over the top of the hill in the way ready for somebody to hit as they crest the dune. So sometimes we live and learn. And you can see already the next dune's just right up ahead here. A little bit steeper even than the one we've just done. You can see we're coming up to that turning around area where you sort of, if you don't make it up, you pull back and turn around. So again, this has the far right hand track that's designed to be a little easier. And of course, we're not taking that one. Taking this one here that looked like it might be fun. You can see how soft that is. Super soft, super long. Again, just unleashed the V8 and said, let's go up. And that's exactly what it's done. Now Matt's come up on that same line and he's given it as much juice as he can. Be helpful if the cameraman would actually point the camera at him. Just feel the revs starting to die. And he's
Keep it
done a
on.
downshift, but too late.
No, you're just digging, mate.
And all the downshift did was he bled off too much speed
So
and was
close.
just digging. So he's got to roll back.
Was that a downward gear shift where you lost a bit of momentum?
Yeah, I went from second back to first because she was about to die completely in second.
You were pretty damn close.
Yeah, I reckon if I downshift just a little bit sooner when I had a bit more revs going.
I agree. Good luck.
So lining up again, you can just sort of make him out, hitting the start of the track through the trees there. A little bit more pace, keeping the revs up.
That's it, keep it on. Yeah, you got it. You got it, keep it going. Keep going. Yeah, he's up.
So second time's the charm there for Matt in his 75. And Paul in the FJ, not short on power in that thing. And Dan in his 90 Series Prado. Also making sure that for comparison, as I said, I'm pretty sure the stock 2H in Matt's Troopy is about 75, 77 kilowatts, and I understand with the FJ Cruisers, the petrol in those is stock about 200 kilowatts. So most of us are rocking nearly double the power that Matt's got available to him in that Troopy, excepting maybe Dan in his 90 series Prado. I think the 90 series Prado is about that 93 kilowatts, so it's still got more power than the Troopy, and it's probably a much lighter vehicle. And yeah, just included this little clip. You can see again, see how much the frame is moving, and see how much the car's moving here. You really wouldn't want to suffer from seasickness driving some of the parts of this track. You're just rocking side to side the whole time. Again, there's a little bit of a break here in this section of track between the last big dune and the next big dune. We are starting to get close to the end of the one-way section of the border track as well. And just coming up on that now, actually. There you go. And we caught up to the group that overtook us earlier. You can see there, that's the centre track on the right hand side, so that's the end of the one-way section. Now, for this video, guys, I'm going to leave this here. This is about halfway through today, so we will pick up the rest of this day of the trip in the next video. Thanks for watching, particularly if you've gotten this far. Like this video if you liked it. If you've got any questions, leave them down below in the comments, and I will do my best to respond to all of them. Thanks to everybody who watches all our videos and comments and subscribes and supports the channel. If you want to pick up a patch or a sticker to support the channel further, you can jump over to our Buy Me a Coffee page. The link is in the description down below.